You can feel late in life without missing a single day. That is the strange thing about the thought, "I'm behind." It does not need evidence. It only needs comparison. A glance at someone else's career, someone else's relationship, someone else's confidence, someone else's calm, and suddenly your own life feels delayed, as if there were a train you should have caught years ago, as if everyone else received a map and you somehow missed the handout. And the feeling can be quiet, not dramatic, just a low pressure in the background, a sense of being out of step, not where you should be, not who you should be by now. Maybe you thought you would be further along, more stable, more certain, less confused, less dependent on approval, less touched by old patterns, more established in love, work, purpose, clarity, peace. And because that imagined version has not arrived on schedule, the mind concludes something painful. I am behind. This video is a direct check on that conclusion, not a motivational speech, not a plan to optimize your decade, not advice on how to finally catch up. Something simpler. What if the feeling of being behind is not a fact about your life, but a thought occurring in awareness? And what if the one who seems behind cannot actually be found in direct experience? That is where we begin. The mind loves timelines. It lines up the years, draws an invisible ruler, and measures your life against it. By this age, I should know this. By now, I should have fixed that. By now, I should be chosen, settled, healed, awake, respected, useful, secure. But notice how quickly the ruler becomes a prison. Because the timeline is never neutral. It is always loaded. It carries borrowed expectations, family voices, cultural scripts, comparison with peers, fear of wasting life, fear of irrelevance, fear that time is moving and you are not. The thought says, look at them. Look at you, you're late. And perhaps the first thing to see is very simple. Life is happening now, but the accusation is happening in thought. That is not a small difference. So let's do the first experiment. Right now, wherever you are, let your eyes settle on something in front of you. A lamp, a wall, a cup, a screen. There it is. Shape, color, texture, distance, the visible world. Now gently point at it, just to confirm the obvious. There is an object there, and you are aware of it. Then slowly turn the pointing around. Point back to where you are looking from. Not to your chest, not to the idea of your face. Point to the place you are looking out of. What do you actually find there? Do you find a delayed person? A late self? A failing timeline? Or do you find openness? A kind of clear space in which the scene is appearing. At zero distance, before memory rushes in, there is no visible face here. No visible age. No visible status. No visible evidence that you are behind. There is seeing. There is hearing. There is experiencing. There is capacity for the whole scene. The world is present. Thoughts about the world are present. Sensations in the body are present. But the late one is harder to find than the mind suggests. This is not denial. It is precision. We are not saying your human life has no practical details. Of course it does. Bills, relationships, skills, decisions, unfinished projects, real consequences. Some things take time. Some things require repair. Some opportunities do close. But the thought, I am behind in life, tries to turn all of that into identity. It does not merely say, there are practical next steps. It says, there is something wrong with the one living this life. That is the extra burden. That is what we are checking. So stay close to experience. A thought appears. I should be further by now. Good. Let it appear. Now ask, what knows this thought? Not what should know it. Not who ought to be better by now. What actually knows the thought right now? Here we arrive at a very useful practice. Label and knower. Label the appearance softly, thinking. Then ask, what knows this? Not as philosophy, as a direct experiment. Is the knower itself a sentence? If so, that sentence is also known. Is it an image of your face or an image of your future? That too is known. Is it a pressure in the chest, a heaviness in the stomach, a tightening in the throat? Those are known too. So stay honest. Whatever you can observe is not the observer. Whatever you can label is not the knower itself. And what remains is oddly simple. Awareness without shape. Capacity without age. Presence without biography. This matters because the feeling of being behind depends on a collapse. It depends on confusing what is appearing with what you are. A thought appears, I'm late. Then the system fuses with it. The thought becomes reality. The mood becomes identity. The comparison becomes self. And then you start living as if your lateness were a fact written into the substance of your being. You hesitate more. You envy more. You rush. You perform. You over-explain. You ask life to prove you still have time. And ironically, that pressure makes you less available for the life that is actually here. So let's slow down and see the structure. Comparison produces contraction. Contraction produces urgency. Urgency produces poor vision. Poor vision produces more comparison. That whole cycle feels personal, but it is mechanical. It is a habit of mind, a loop. The good news is that loops can be seen, and what is seen clearly begins to loosen. Now let's bring in another simple check. Two-way seeing. Usually, it feels like you are a small person in the head looking out at a world of other people who are ahead of you. Their lives are happening over there. Yours is happening in here. They seem solid. You seem lacking. But pause. Notice the room around you. The objects. The colors. The depth of the scene. Where is all of this being given? It is being given in awareness. It is arriving here, in this open capacity. So yes, the world appears out there, but it also appears in you, in your experience, in this field that has no visible border at zero distance. Now include the comparison itself, the image of another person's success, the fantasy of where you should be, the fear that you missed your moment. Where do those appear? Also here, also in awareness. This is why two-way seeing matters. It gently undoes the sense that you are trapped inside a deficient self looking at a superior world. It shows a more honest arrangement. The entire drama of ahead and behind is appearing in the same open field. That does not erase practical differences between people. It does not erase stages, consequences, learning curves, or missed opportunities, but it changes the center of gravity. You are no longer living as a small, delayed object begging time to forgive you. You are the space in which time, memory, envy, ambition, and possibility all appear. And from here, something softens. Not because you tell yourself, "I am exactly where I should be." That can become another slogan. But because you stop demanding that your present moment justify itself against an imaginary schedule. Maybe this is the deeper suffering. Not that you have a human life with unfinished parts, but that you refuse to let the unfinished life be here without turning it into shame. And shame is rarely a good teacher. Let's say it plainly. The thought, "I'm behind," often sounds responsible, mature, honest. But very often, it is just self-aggression dressed up as realism. It says, if I push hard enough, maybe I can finally become acceptable to myself. But notice how many years can disappear inside that strategy. You finally reach one milestone, and the mind immediately moves the finish line. You get the job. Now you should be further in the job. You enter the relationship. Now it should be deeper. You learn the practice. Now you should be more peaceful. You make progress. Now you should have made it sooner. The mind does not know how to arrive. It only knows how to compare positions. That is why direct seeing matters. Because direct seeing does not tell you that the human story is complete. It tells you that what you are, fundamentally, is not wounded by incompletion. You can have an unfinished life without being a failed life. You can have a slow season without being a lost person. You can have detours, delays, restarts, and still not be behind in the only place that actually matters. Here. Here is always on time. Awareness is never late to the moment because it is the condition of the moment. And perhaps this sounds too abstract until you test it in the ordinary places where this pain appears. So let's move into daily life. Maybe you open your phone and see someone younger achieving something you wanted. The contraction begins. Before the story grows, stop for one breath. Label. Comparing. Then ask, what knows this? Not to eliminate the comparison, just to relocate yourself. Again, the comparison is known. The sting is known. The image is known. The sense of being diminished is known. And the knower itself? Open, unharmed, present. Now, maybe you feel pressure because friends are buying homes, getting married, building families, becoming visible, growing stable, and your life feels uncertain, fragmented, delayed. Do not insult yourself with slogans. Do not say, "Everything happens for a reason," if that is not true in your experience. Just stay clean. This ache is here. This fear is here. This longing is here. And all of it is appearing in the same openness that has room for a whole life to unfold. Sometimes the most healing thing is not a better interpretation, but a more honest location. Not in the story about the self, in the space where the story is being told. Now we come to the mirror check. When you look in a mirror, you see a face, an age, a person with a visible history, someone who seems to be moving through time. And that is useful. The mirror shows how you appear. It helps with practical life. But the mirror does not show what you are at zero distance. Look away from the mirror, or imagine doing so now. Right where you are, do you see the face that seems late? Do you see the age that seems behind? Or do you find the world appearing in a kind of faceless clarity? This difference is liberating. The mirror gives you an object called me. Society organizes itself around that object. Timelines gather around that object. Expectations attach to that object. Fine, let them. But your immediate life is not lived as an object. It is lived as seeing, hearing, sensing, knowing. And that open knowing is not behind. Now, none of this means you become passive. This is where many people get confused. They think the only alternatives are pressure or laziness, shame or collapse. But there is a third possibility: clean action. You can take practical steps without turning your whole existence into a delayed emergency. You can update your resume, learn the skill, make the call, apologize, leave the wrong place, begin again, ask for help, save money, go to therapy, end the relationship, start the practice. All of that belongs to the human life. But when action comes from shame, it tightens the system. When action comes from clarity, it steadies the system. That is the difference. So here is a useful phrase: logistics, no mysticism. If part of your life needs attention, attend to it directly. Not, I'm behind, therefore I'm failing. Instead, this needs care. Not, everyone else knows what they are doing. Instead, what is the next honest step? Not, I have wasted too much time. Instead, what can I do from here? That shift may seem small, but it changes everything. One voice attacks identity. The other responds to reality. One voice produces paralysis. The other produces movement. And if this is helping, subscribe. Not because more content will make you enough, and not because you need another self-improvement project, but because these reminders can help you return to what is already here when the old pressure starts up again. And if someone you know is quietly suffering under the weight of comparison, share this with them. Now, let's go even closer. What is the fear underneath "I'm behind"? Usually, it is not really about schedule. It is about belonging, love, worth. The fear that if your life does not look right in time, you will be left out of the human circle. That you will become invisible, undesirable, unchosen, too late to matter. That is tender territory. And this is exactly why harsh self-talk does not help. It only deepens the exile. So instead of forcing confidence, try inclusion. Let the fear be here. Let the grief be here. Let the embarrassment be here. Let even the jealousy be here. You do not need to approve of everything that appears in order to allow it to appear. The sky does not improve itself by rejecting weather. The ocean does not panic when a rough wave passes through. Likewise, awareness does not become more itself by editing the experience that arises in it. This does not make pain pleasant, it makes pain workable. And often, when the pressure of self-rejection drops, something surprising happens. Intelligence returns. You see more clearly what is yours to do and what is merely noise. You realize that some timelines were never yours. Some milestones were inherited, not chosen. Some comparisons were built on fantasy. Some success was simply visibility. Some delay was protection. Some detour taught you a depth that speed could not. You begin to feel the difference between being late to someone else's script and being faithful to your actual life. That distinction matters, because a seed is not late for failing to bloom in winter. And dawn is not behind because night lasted longer than expected. Life unfolds by conditions, not by panic. Your job is not to force bloom by shame. Your job is to meet conditions honestly. So maybe the gentlest truth is this: you are not behind in life. You are in life. And life is unfinished while it is alive. There will be seasons of building, seasons of confusion, seasons of waiting, seasons of grief, seasons of sudden movement, seasons when nothing visible seems to happen, and yet something essential is ripening underneath. Do not confuse invisibility with absence. Do not confuse slowness with failure. Do not confuse uncertainty with wrongness. And now, let's end with a very simple card of the day. Pause. Name. Return. Pause when the comparison begins. Name what is here: envy, fear, pressure, planning, shame. Then return. Return to the knower, return to the seeing, return to the clear space where this whole experience is being held. 3 breaths are enough. Not to become superior, not to become special, not to become more advanced than anyone else. Just to stop abandoning yourself into the story of being late. Because right here, before the next thought, before the next comparison, before the next timeline rushes in, you are not behind. You are the open capacity in which this moment is arriving. And this moment does not need to be caught. It only needs to be seen. Если хочешь, следующим сообщением я сразу сделаю к нему полный пакет. Title, thumbnail text, description, hashtags, tags, chapters и pinned comment.